Hi, everybody. Super excited about today. We've got a special guest, Debra Atkinson. She's been on my show on the Accelerated Health Radio and TV, but this is going to be more of an informal introduction to her and her program. And we're going to be talking about exercise and how it's different for women, especially over 50. And something I learned from you, Debra, last time we talked was that women go through 7 different hormonal changes during their lifetime, and men don't. And men are just consistent. They have their results. They tweak something little and they get their results. And we're sitting here going, well, what's going on with me? It's just very frustrating. And I'm 46 years old. I've always worked out. I was rowing and I was playing volleyball as a young kid. So I've done the chronic cardio. I've done just the short bursts. I know all the different types of exercise. I love the chronic cardio. And what I found last year, all of a sudden it hit me that I was losing muscle mass. And I'm like, what's going on in my body? I didn't really change anything, but it really shows you how you have to really become in tune with your body as your hormones change after 40 and getting into 50 and 60 and 70. And I am just so excited that you have really focused in on this age group for women because it's needed. And tomorrow on my show, I've got Cynthia Thurlow talking about intermittent fasting but how that's different when you're going through perimenopause or you're trying to get pregnant or your menopause. All of these different stages, we need to treat our bodies differently. My girls are teenagers and they're rowing and they are working out 4 hours a day, which would kill me, right? And I could get away with that back when I was a teenager, but our bodies don't do the same thing they were doing back then. Before we get into Debra and what her program's like, I have done a video and an article on how we can enhance these results from exercise and what you do to because it's hard to get motivated if the results come slow or if they don't come at all. And there's so much going on in our bodies that are affecting our results. And we talk about what you put in your mouth is 80% of it. What you do in the gym is changing your body composition, whereas the food that's going in your mouth or what's not going in your mouth is actually affecting the fat loss and giving you the building blocks for that muscle. So what I wanted to talk about just real quick and mention how you can enhance these benefits is truly through the Accelerated Ascent Diet Cleanse supplements and Debra's program. And so I would love people to join Debra's program in April and join the Ascent Diet Cleanse at the same time to really get that synergistic effect of the two together. And when we talk about one of the key supplements that I've seen really help a lot of women is the Accelerated Keto, because it not just flips you into that fat burning mode where it goes after the fat that we want to get rid of, the fat that jiggles, but also the bad fat for you, the visceral fat, the liver fat. It actually turns that saturated fat into unsaturated fat in the liver, which makes it easier to burn. And that Accelerated Keto, it's not just the ketones in it. So it's not just what you can find in other keto supplements. It's the other 9 ingredients that are Ayurvedic herbs that really work at stoking that fire and increasing additional ketones from your own body fat, increases autophagy mechanisms, which reduce inflammation, recycles the bad parts of the cells that we need to get rid of. And it cleans out the liver, which helps increase that thyroid health, that converting T4 to T3, which is your inactive into your active thyroid hormones, which increase your metabolism and your energy. In addition to that, And what it also has is HMB. And people go after protein powders with leucine in it because leucine is known to maintain muscle mass. Well, actually, it's the leucine that turns into HMB, and it's the HMB that prevents muscle wasting, which was something that I was experiencing and a lot of women that do after the age of 40. But only 3% of leucine converts into HMB. And the accelerated keto has that direct just HMB. And then when you add in those energy enhancer stem cell patches, it increases that ATP production in the mitochondria, increases heart rate variability, improves the bioelectrical measurement or that phase angle of the cells, which allows the toxins out of the cells and the nutrients in the cells, reduces inflammation, and increases endurance. And I put them on right here on my lung meridians. And my goodness, within 15 minutes, I'm busting out whatever I want to in my workout. It increases that beta oxidation, which is the fastest way to increase cellular energy, and helps with fat burning and muscle growth, and prevents that muscle wasting or the muscle breakdown. And then the Acceleradine is increasing that ATP production by 18 times. And I've been working really hard on the importance.
Still. Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll get it. We still have a few minutes, Debra, until you get your sound back. The ATP production increases that mitochondrial health. And with that 36 ATP per mitochondria instead of just 2, normally it's increasing brain function, physical performance, wound healing, fat burning, healthy apoptosis. And it is also going to start kicking out the toxins from radiation, from the heavy metals, from graphene oxide, from spike proteins. It is the only known supplement that is reversing the damage from mRNA to in the DNA. So that is something that's really important, and that mRNA damage is accelerating aging significantly. It's also going to be hindering any performance that you're trying to get through exercise or diet or all of these changes that you're making. The X49 patch, awesome. When you put that on, you're increasing your energy, your recovery after exercise, improves cardiovascular function and focus, increases muscle tone and strength, increases that lean body mass and bone density, and reduces belly fat. I can tell you personally, my biceps strength has increased significantly. The push-ups I'm doing, it's like, okay, when am I going to go to failure? I'm just keep going and going and going. And I feel stronger than I felt in a lot of years. And as I mentioned, last year, I was suffering from muscle loss. So for me to say that now, it is really telling, because I didn't really change anything else. My diet's been very consistent. And I'm kind of consistent to a fault. I can be boring if for some people, because I don't change much, but I also am a great N of 1. I test myself, with when one change, does it work or does it not work? So that X49 really makes a difference. And the X39 is resetting over 4,000 genes to a younger state. So your body's acting as if it was your 20-year-old version of yourself. It also helps repair that collagen in your tissues, which is really important for injury. As we're getting older, we want to prevent the injury, which is also important reason why we do exercise in different ways. And as we get older, to make sure we're not getting the injuries to the knees, the hips, and that sort of thing. So that's really, and electrolytes. The accelerated ancient salt has over 62 minerals in it. And it's so important to be hydrating, not just with water when you're exercising, but you're sweating out all your electrolytes, the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and all of the minerals. So that accelerated ancient salt, just put it on your tongue when you're working out or in your water, and you will be hydrating. You actually get a boost of energy from it. I also, and Debra, I believe, will ditto this. It's really important to have plenty of protein, and the right kind of protein, especially. And as we get older, people think that we need less protein as we get older. We actually need more because we have less digestive enzymes to break it down. And it's got to be the right kind of protein. I don't like chicken, even if it's organic. It deposits those amyloid proteins in your brain and in your tissues that can cause Alzheimer's and dementia. But even at the very least, it's not being broken down in usable protein or amino acids. And that protein is going to protect your muscle, protect your lean body mass. And you want to consume 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of desired lean body mass. And then also we want to, if I believe fasting, working out in a fasted state, you get that tweak of a little bit more of the fat burning, and you're primed to use your meal at post-workout more efficiently. Your body's primed to actually use it for energy and building muscle. And if you eat the wrong foods before you work out, then you actually are priming your body to store fat after your workout. So this is really interesting when you think about, when am I going to put my meals? Am I going to fast, work out in a fasted state, or am I going to eat that banana before the workout and then move forward and have that meal, that protein shake after? You might be doing yourself a disservice. So those are just a few things that I wanted to talk about before we dive into how to exercise, especially for women after the age of 40, 50, 60. And we're going to talk about whether you've never worked out in your life, or you're someone like me who's worked out all of our lives, but maybe we're doing it wrong now. So Debra, welcome. I'm so excited to have you. And I'm looking at some of the names on this call, and you girls know who you are. You need Debra very much so. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I love talking about this, and so glad to talk to you about it. So lots of things you said just echo, you with your vast experience, and, those who maybe started at one point but need a restart at this point, or who really never felt like you need it. Most of us right now are getting a wake-up call for whatever reason. It's not working anymore, the same thing I was doing, or didn't think I needed to make time for that in the past, and now suddenly realizing I'm going to. I think for a lot of us, our wake-up call is watching our parents age and saying,
yes,
I don't want to go there. I'm seeing what is. And now we have enough science to say we're very fortunate to be in a position where we can change the way we age by our lifestyle habits, and we know it. I mean, other generations could have as well, but didn't know it, didn't have the science and the evidence, and we now do.
Yeah, so let's go through why you don't want to do chronic cardio as you age, and what is the change of the hormones in the female body that is making this cascade of, okay, what worked for me before isn't working for me now.
Yes, well, absolutely. So this cascade of the dirty dozen or more, right, that we have that our male cohorts don't have. So I think all of us can identify with that, wanting to drop a few pounds and doing it with our spouse or partner or brother for that matter. And suddenly they find it so very easy, and we're still sitting at the starting line wondering, why hasn't anything changed? And so it is, of course, at menopause, whether that's perimenopause or it's closer to you transitioning to post-menopause, when you notice the sex hormones have gotten your attention. So when our estrogen and progesterone and testosterone levels, they're trending downward and or going down and tanking, literally, they get our attention because of what's happening as a result. When they go down, our cortisol levels actually go up. So I so often say women in midlife are so much more susceptible to the negative effects of stress and cortisol.
Yes.
And we all know what it feels like. We know the feeling of stress. But the unfortunate thing sometimes is we can't feel other things that are giving our bodies stress, which would potentially be eating poorly, not necessarily even eating too much or eating too little, but eating poorly can stress our bodies out, causing inflammation and causing a lack of the ability to build the lean muscle or hold on to it that we need. And likewise with our bone. And we can't always, those of us who love exercise. So Sarah, I'm going to guess that with your history, you love it, you enjoy it, you would love to go do endurance exercise. And I'm right there with you. We could probably start the support club after this, right? And we have to hold ourselves back because we enjoy it so much to realize that this is actually causing muscle breakdown. That kind of stressor causes muscle breakdown, a lack of sleep. And sometimes we feel that, but other times we're actually doing it to ourselves, burning the candle on both ends because we enjoy being a night owl and we have to get up in the morning and like being productive. And we don't realize that the lack of our optimal level of sleep is also increasing our cortisol levels and therefore breaking down muscle. So cortisol's job, and it has some good ones, it's not always the villain. We need it for certain things, but it is also going to cause catabolism, breakdown of muscle. And so when that is happening, it's futile. You're that mouse on the treadmill, potentially kind of spinning backward, losing muscle, trying to exercise, but actually exercise itself, even when it's the healthy dose of exercise, is a breakdown activity. So if we compound that by we haven't gotten as much sleep as we should have last night, we're breaking down because of that as well. And if we're not fueling, we're thinking, well, I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm going to cut back on my calories and I'm not fueling enough, we're compounding that even more. So it's, 3 strikes, you're out, right, in baseball. So we've got more than that many times because we're simply in midlife or later where we don't have the optimal hormones we did. I like to think of it like sitting on a 3-legged stool, and we've got, the estrogen and testosterone and progesterone in great levels, and we can exercise probably very moderately, or some of us might have gotten away with not doing much. And then we have eating and sleep is in there as well. But when we go through menopause and we tank, that estrogen is just gone. And estrogen is a huge stimulus for holding on to muscle. So as you're doing all of your activity, whether you were doing cardiovascular or strength training, or you're doing yoga, which is a little resistance training, you were being helped by the fact that you had that estrogen. So we've always known that it was very protective of bone density. And we now know that it was equally as protected of your muscle mass. So when it's gone, and that level, even if you supplement with hormone replacement, is not the same level as when you were in your reproductive years. We just don't have that. And that stimulus needs to come from somewhere else. So Sarah, you alluded to one way to increase our muscle protein synthesis, which is using protein we eat to the benefit of our muscle so we can hold on to it, is eating adequate protein, which is more than we ever used to think, most of us, that we needed. And the other one is exercise. Getting the two of those in close proximity is gold. So it is kind of the tandem. Yes, it's exercise, not so much as we used to think for calorie burning. It's actually, let's optimize our hormones by doing it, and doing it in the appropriate dose. So there's a saying that is a term coined by the American Medical Association in conjunction with the American College of Sports Medicine. Exercise is medicine. And truth, if you had a bottle of prescription medicine sitting on your counter, you would neither take too little or too much, right? You've paid dearly for that prescription, most likely, and trusted the doctor who said you need this. If you think of exercise in the same way, you need to find the right amounts and do it at the right increments. And that's really what this change is all about, is finding it for the moment of life that you're in right now. How much do you need and how frequently do you need it?
Well, a couple things I just want to emphasize that
Yeah.
part of the difference between men and women is we have an organ that dies. Our ovaries die. Our ovaries stop producing the testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, and our adrenals take that job over. The adrenals is also where the cortisol comes out of, right? So, number one, cortisol raises blood sugar, which stores fat. That is part of its job. So, even without eating anything, high levels of cortisol is going to prime your body to store fat, but it's also tapping your adrenals so much. But now your adrenals are supposed to be producing your female hormones. And if they're tapped out, they're also going to be tapped out on producing those female hormones. So it's a double whammy. So Marvy has a couple questions, and I'm so glad she's asking her questions because Marvy, you need Debra. Okay. So she says, I just have 8-pound barbells. Do I need to purchase more weights or heavier weights? She is postmenopausal with little bone mass, and she's out of shape. She's not one that's ever really worked out, and she's also afraid of weightlifting. So does she need to jump into heavy weightlifting, or how does she do that? And then her second question that I really want you to tackle is estrogen dominance. And how does exercise help that? And what are your other tools for that profile?
Yeah, great question. So I want clarity. So Marvy, I'm reading that you say I'm not afraid of weightlifting.
Oh, sorry, you're right. Yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure. And then that also could be a typo. So who knows? You might have been intuitive there. Oh, such great questions. So first of all, back to start from the top, the 8-pound barbell. So I think you mean dumbbells, but I totally know what you're talking about. And will you? I'm going to tell you that yes, because I would say to anybody, if you're at the beginning of the program and you're starting with these, you're going to get stronger. That's going to be a good problem. Okay. So can we just agree that if you have to go shopping for 10 or 12-pound dumbbells, we just bought a good problem, and that's probably a pretty good investment. But to start, do you need something else? I would say start with those and then go to your pantry and pull out either a couple water bottles that you can fill with sand and get something smaller. So you've got a couple of choices if we're doing smaller muscle groups, and use those to learn the kind of dance with me. I talk through that so that you decide, what weight do I need? You'll have a better idea before you go shopping if you experiment and start and realize the first few weeks of any program, and this is true when you were 20, as true as it is today, that you can't hurry what we call the neural connection. The connection between your brain and your muscles is really what's responsible for your progress in the first few weeks of a program. So we're much wiser to start with lighter weights anyway, and lay down the connective tissue around your joints. The belly of your muscle can probably take more, but you're going to have to move it with the connective tissue around your joints. So you're going to build a strong foundation with low risk of getting hurt. So I think you're just fine for getting started. And yes, you're going to have to go shopping because you're going to get stronger. That's a given. Um, you want to get back or would like to jump into heavy lifting. So you're an overachiever here, is what I'm gathering, right? So right now you have 8 pounds, and based on what you're saying, you want to get into lifting heavy with few repetitions. And I think your question from there it trailed off, but do you, maybe we're going to say advocate that? I'm going to guess, okay? And so here's what I would say is, I'm all for that. That is down the road if you haven't been doing it right now. So we're talking a couple months or several months before you get heavy, because again, if your joints haven't been doing this for a while, you'll have some muscle memory, but your joints are still going to say, give me an adaptation period here. So be safe. And yes, the few repetitions with heavier weights will be most applicable to building bone densities. So it will be most helpful, but none of us can jump ahead and get there without laying that foundation first. And then you'll discover if there are any reasons why you shouldn't go heavy with the joints that you're using. Last one I wanted to address was your postmenopausal, so the estrogen dominance. So with estrogen dominance, one of the things that we want to watch out for is causing too much stress. So you're already probably more susceptible again to negative effects of stress and cortisol. So probably twice weekly, total body, doing that with ample rest in between is very wise for you. And yet, if you're struggling at all and not feeling rested or feeling anxious, it's a good time to what we call restore before more. At Flipping 50, it's the number one rule. So we want all the rest of the things to happen. But first, we've got to restore before more, meaning potentially reducing stress, which might mean for a while that you are focused on doing yoga and walking in between your strength training and not much else, just to bring some of those cortisol levels down so that we can reduce the estrogen dominance. And Sarah, feel free to chime in. And Marvy said, yes, an overachiever. Okay.
Yes. She is one of my golden girls. I love Marvy, and she's been with me for such a long time. And I've learned so much from her, and she's such a cheerleader to everyone in the group. So thank you, Marvy. If anyone else has any questions, put it in the chat. I definitely, everything that you're saying, I 100% agree. Let's go through what your program looks like. So when they sign up, what do you take them through? How long is it? And what would they expect?
Absolutely. So, and this is all research based. So let me just say that before I talk longer. This is really important to me that you understand that there are hundreds of thousands of personal trainers in the world, many of whom are certified and many of whom are not. And many of them like to write programs and be creative. And this is not that. This is based on science. So it's protocols that have been proven to work with women in menopause as the subjects. That's an important distinction, that it's not just about position statements and guidelines. And I taught in kinesiology for 15 years, students who wanted to be trainers, wanted to own gyms later or be fitness instructors, and realized afterwards, after the fact, that all of the research that was given to us to base those position statements, meaning here's how many times a week you should do cardiovascular exercise. Here's how many minutes it should last. And here's how often you should do your strength training. We've all heard that you've got to do it for X amount of minutes, or you've got to do it for these many times per week. That was based on a wide range of ages and both men and women. So none of us fits any average, and there is never a median or average. So we've really got to take a good look at, was that the right thing to do? And I've come to the conclusion that definitely it's not. So this is all scientific and based on what's happening in midlife. So we start with 2 workouts a week because, again, that's the sweet spot. One is just not enough, but it's been proven that 2 and 3 get the equal amount of results. But what's unique about it for women in midlife and beyond is many of us are already tired. We're already struggling, kind of on that edge of depleting our adrenal system and on the edge of high stress and maybe already there in burnout, like adrenal issues. So, twice is really a great spot to say, number one, I can do this. It's realistic. It's time sensitive for me. So, it respects my schedule and what else I need to do. So, twice, and it's total body. So, some of you who've participated in exercise in the past may have done what we call a split routine, where it's a body part today and it's a different body part tomorrow. That actually is not very effective. Total body versus those one muscle group a day programs increases your metabolism by 8 times. So if we're trying to lose weight or optimize our body composition by doing strength training and using it, total body makes much more sense for us. And we need the recovery. So twice a week also, think about the way we used to schedule things. So many of us, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe our exercise, or Tuesday and Thursday. And really the better would be something like Monday to Thursday. 72 hours between seems to be better for more adults over 40, definitely over 50, and that's men and women. So you can tell the men in your life that you love who are over 50 that as well, if they're just not seeing the results. Sometimes it's not that the workout isn't working, it's that it's working too much and you're breaking down and you're breaking down and you're breaking down without that opportunity to rest and recover. A good friend of mine, Dr. Joe Friel, worked for a long time with endurance athletes, namely triathletes, but he was famous for saying that the exercise provides the opportunity for fitness. The fitness happens during the recovery between. And we have to include just the rest from exercise. And we include the protein we eat, as well as other good whole foods, and the sleep that we get. All of those things contribute to, do you reap the reward from your exercise? You do if you're doing those things. So I give you plenty of time to implement those. The workouts are about 40 minutes. So some are quite a bit shorter, some are a little bit longer, but you have about 90 minutes per week. That's kind of what you're signing up for and saying, okay, I will do that. And your goal is to say Monday and Thursday or Tuesday and Friday, I'm putting these things on my schedule and that's when it's going to happen. And we take you through. So in every workout, I'm actually on the video with you in my living room, then in Boulder, Colorado, doing a warm up with you, doing every repetition, getting down and up from the floor or to a bench, maybe in your case with you, doing the cool down with you, and there every moment. So literally cracking bad jokes. We kind of have a quota. So every few minutes there's a bad joke, and I do laugh at my own jokes. So if that will offend you, you want to consider that. Okay. So we try to keep you entertained, but there's one new workout every week. You'll do that twice, and then you'll move on to the next one. So there's not the opportunity to get tired of the routine. And yet, when you've done the first workout, you've gone through, our motions only have so many things we can do with them. Our joints can only do so many different activities. So when you know the exercises, what we're doing is just putting them in a different sequence, putting them together in different pairs or different small groups of 3. And again, not at random. It wasn't my mood when I got up in the morning. It's according to science, and we know that it works. So, not only in science, but in the last 8 years at Flipping 50, we've proved that it works. So, with our 250,000 women who've gone through programs. So, that also very important. So, I'm going to take a breath, Sarah.
Yeah,
I'll let
no,
you.
and I'm glad you
Okay.
mentioned the number, because Debra's got quite a following, and she wouldn't be where she is today if she didn't have people that can say their testimonies and really speak to what she's doing. So Kitty wanted to ask what the best workouts are to add muscle when you're starting to notice muscle loss. And Kitty, this is what I was experiencing last year, where I'm like, what's going on with my body? And I have to tell you, a lot of you know about the Genius Insight app that I have on my phone that scans my body every day and tells me what's going on in my body. It was showing catabolism. And I was sitting there going, what's going on here? But it literally was, my body was telling the system, okay, something's going on. You've got some catabolism going on. And it was breaking down my muscle tissue. So let's go into that. What do you see when you're talking about that muscle loss, or what do you recommend?
Yeah. So a couple of the things I'll come back to. So it's the twice a week, spreading adequate time out between. And then the key is when you're doing the exercise, having had that rest, coming to it fresh, you're able to work a little harder without it seeming extremely hard. So when you are exercising and you're already fatigued and broken down, you're going to perceive it as harder and probably much more difficult and uncomfortable. So that's an important distinction as well. But when you are recovered fully, if, for instance, you were starting a workout and you were already a little sore, a little tired still from that last workout, you may pick up 8 pounds and do that chest press with 8 pounds and just think, that is done. I'm toast. Whereas with full recovery, you often may be able to pick up those 10 or those 12 pounds and say, I actually can do this today and I'm feeling so much stronger. And which one of those do you suppose is greater overload that will help change your muscle mass and make you stronger? The 8 or the 12? It's the 12, right? Your body repeatedly, we see this in the literature, that for women in menopause, the question is always, will strength training support more lean muscle mass, or will interval training support helping to decrease my visceral belly fat? The answer is always, from the researchers responding, yes, as long as there is adequate intensity. So you really want punctuation. You want rest periods punctuated by a workout that, in terms of weight training, takes you to muscular fatigue. That's temporary fatigue where you're just struggling to get the last one and you're not sure if you're going to do that. And then you put it down, and 30 seconds or a minute later, you'd probably be able to do a couple more. You're not toast. But we want that complete failure, muscle failure momentarily. And that will tell you you've gotten enough overload that as long as you rest between and take in protein, you'll be able to rebuild and repair. What happens between is the muscles then say, okay, these little tears that you created while you were working out, we know there was threat. There was an attack on our muscles. So instead of just putting it back together, they're going to get stronger than they were. And that is the gaining of strength. It's why you can pick up 10 or 12 pounds later when you started with 5 or 8. So it is a recovery, absolutely. So that is one way to overcome You've got to reach that muscular fatigue, have the adequate things in your recovery. We'll talk a little bit more about protein and pre and or post or fasted and or fed. So I'll throw in an idea about that. So that's how we do it. And yes, it was a great use of terms. So muscle loss, if it's significant, is called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is to muscle as osteoporosis is to bone. So you're exactly right on that. Marvy says, can you give an example or two of women from previous groups with you, results as it relates to mind, body, and spirit? I can, and actually you can keep me honest here. So I woke up to this yesterday. In one of our groups, our current group is just finishing, and they're in about week 11. And one of them said this. So can I read to you? Do I have permission?
Yeah.
She says, holy smokes. So I got the email from Debra today to do my measurements ending stronger 3. I hadn't sneaked a peek at 12 weeks, so I was curious. She says, OMG, I dropped 1.5 inches from my belly, 0.5 from my hips, thighs, and calf, and a bit more off the shoulders and chest. And all the while only dropping 2 pounds, but gaining 0.5 pounds of muscle. So more importantly, I would say I do feel stronger. My cardiovascular fitness as well. Remarkable program, was by no means effortless, she says, but it was super engaging, kept me coming back each week. I'm off to the mall to buy some new pants.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, it's hard to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time. A lot of people haven't. And one other thing I wanted to stress is that for a lot of women, mentally, we've been growing up that you don't want to lift heavy weights because we don't want to get too big. That's never going to happen, especially as our hormones are going down. We don't have a fraction of the testosterone that men have to build those big, bulky muscles. And so it's really important. And I wanted to just address Marvy's other question on the X49. Yes, you want to wear the X49 on the days of your workouts. I wear it every day because I just am continually wanting to actually put more muscle on. That's where my focus is right now. So I'm wearing it every day, but definitely on the days you're working out.
Yeah. And I think great comment. And I will come back to your comment being, I want to add muscle. And for sure, I mean, I don't know if you have a great camera angle or what, but you're small, you're slight, right? You're small frame. And I think even if you're not, the picture of Sarah, and you're not tiny, or you're a slightly larger frame, and you think your focus is wanting to lose fat, the problem with that target is we can never hit it. And yet losing fat will happen by default if you gain lean muscle. We're creating more metabolically active tissue. And so it's not necessarily that we have a fat problem, an abundance of fat. We have a lack of muscle for many of us. And if you want to do it positively, so you can run toward a goal, we actually can control far better. Strength training not only helps you do that, as well as the eating of the protein, but it's just so futile, and we have no control over when your body will shed or release that fat. And it's definitely not on our schedule. I can tell you that, right?
And just metabolically, muscle tissue has more ATP and more mitochondria. And that brown fat tissue, a lot of people don't know the different fats. You've got the white fat that jiggles, and brown, which is more metabolically healthy fat. We want that fat. It's very good for us, and it has a lot of ATP. Well, as you're increasing your muscle mass, you're increasing your mitochondria, you're increasing your ATP, which is increasing your cellular energy. You're also increasing storage for those carbs that you do like to eat, and you have a place to put that in the tissue, which also helps lower insulin resistance and lowers that fat, the dangerous fat, is causing inflammation throughout the body. So we're lowering that inflammation, increasing the muscle, increasing the mitochondrial health, which is reversing your age. It's just a cascade of all these good things that happen. And then imagine what it does to your brain. I talk about how exercise increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and that helps lift the mood, helps alleviate depression, helps with creativity, helps just fight off all dementia and other brain diseases. Just so important as we get older. And for my parents, I'm like, make sure you're moving, keep moving, because a lot of our elderly parents, they can slip very quickly. Well, Debra, I know you are in a tight schedule. You've had a long day, and so I don't want to exhaust you too much more. You guys have to follow her. Flipping 50 is her podcast. Fantastic podcast. I'll be on her show on April 1st. But also tell people where I'm going to put the link to where they can sign up for the program in the Telegram chat. And also when I post this video on YouTube, it will also be down in that description below. But we tell everybody how much the program is, and is that a 3-month program, correct?
It is a 12-week program. This particular program starts April 1st. You have access until June 28th. So there's a little wiggle room there. If you get started in week 1, you probably will have the opportunity to come back and repeat some of those you loved. And if you have a little hiccup in the middle, you're still really on track. You have all the time you need to finish. And I think you'll really enjoy it. If you start right away, it's $149 or $147. Forget my 7s and 9s. But if you wait to the last minute, you can get into the end of the month, but the price does go up. So for those procrastinators, you have to pay another $50. So just do it now. Then you're in the green room and we talk about, how do I pick the weights I need? How do I measure so I can actually track my progress? Because it's not just the weight on the scale.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is just a fraction of dollar amount for what you're getting. I mean, most gyms are $100 a month and you're never going to it. So talk about accountability and accessibility, and there's more information and instruction than you probably need. And I just can't say enough about Debra. I've been following her for years, and she's been on TED Talk. Yay. And she's just really an expert in this field. So highly recommend it. And thank you for coming on, Debra. And I will post this in the Telegram and also on YouTube, hopefully by tonight. So thank you, everybody. If you have other questions, you can also put them in the Telegram chat, and Debra could answer them there as well. All righty, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Stay strong, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.